Joining us today is Christina Keller, CEO and Chair of Cascade Engineering. Christina, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
We are looking forward to the discussion today, so I'm hoping you can share a little bit of your story. How did you become the CEO and Chair of Cascade Engineering?
Wonderful. So my background, I started out here in West Michigan. I was born and raised in this area. Our family moved to Switzerland when I was in high school, and I went to high school at the American International School of Zurich. Graduating from there, came back to the U.S. and went to Boston College, studied international development and environmental science, kind of more of the social and environmental side of things. I was really attracted to how can you make an impact on people's lives? How can we make a positive impact in developing countries? Spent some time in Africa and Latin America, installing solar panels on schools and hospitals, working with water filtration and greenhouse gas emissions. So I actually went for the first greenhouse gas emission registry in the U.S. at Environmental Resources Trust in D.C. So spent a lot of time with not-for-profits, making a positive impact. Realized that the not-for-profit model is not as sustainable as I maybe had hoped. A lot of organizations are very good at fundraising or very good at doing the mission, and oftentimes not both. In terms of being a long-term sustainable model, it was somewhat challenged, and so really looked at business as an opportunity of how businesses can make a positive impact. So went back to business school at Cornell, got my MBA, worked at Accenture doing M&A for oil and gas, and that was kind of flipping to the opposite side of the spectrum, and settled in as a consultant for a couple of years in New York City. And then decided to come back to West Michigan, joined Cascade Engineering in 2009. And I applied some of my learnings to our work with water filtration with the Hydrate Biosand water filter, which we worked collaboratively with the WindQuest group and raised some money and ultimately landed that organization with Native Energy, which was a greenhouse gas registry as well. And then focused in on heavy trucks, so joined our heavy truck division at Cascade Engineering, was the president of that, based out of Ohio for our operations in Ohio, North Carolina, and Texas for a number of years, and ultimately came back maybe about 5 or 6 years ago to Grand Rapids, to the West Michigan community, became the president of the local group, led to CEO, and then ultimately chair for the Cascade Engineering family of companies.
Wow, incredible story. Congratulations. Yeah, it's amazing. I think leaders know just the amazing reputation that Cascade has around how you think about sustainability and kind of this triple bottom line. Would you just share a little bit more about the idea of that?
Absolutely. And so when Fred founded Cascade Engineering 50 years ago, he really thought about all three aspects. So people, planet, and profit. And really, it's been interesting watching over the years because he has not changed from that original focus, but the world around seems to have changed in different ways and how they approach it. And I often say, too, I wish we weren't still pioneers in this space because it seems like the logical way to do business. But it's really looking at the people in your organization, the people in your community. How can you ensure that they are thriving and ensure that we can collectively thrive as a organization, as a community? How can we build each other up? And the way that we look from the people perspective side of things is looking at breaking down barriers. So ultimately, everybody's individual thriving is up to them. You cannot force somebody to thrive. You can give all the best circumstances that they can, but ultimately it's up to them. And so it's really walking alongside and breaking down barriers. So some of the barriers that we've looked at in the past and that now we're looking at as a greater community are childcare, transportation, home ownership, and other types of barriers that people might have as they're either entering the workforce initially, entering from poverty, working at different areas. And then we look at a very successful promotion path for our Pay for Contributions program of starting out as, for example, an A-level operator. It's very clear of what it takes to become a B-level operator and a C-level operator, and then you can go on to D and beyond. And what we have found with that is it's, in addition to breaking down the barriers, it's about giving a clear path for growth, giving small growth that allows for people to say, yes, I made it to that next level, and give them the confidence to continue to step on their path. And so a combination of a couple of different factors, including having a social worker on site, has really helped to break down those initial barriers, and then programs to really help people advance with clarity, without bias or judgment of where other people are ranking, because they know exactly what it takes. Some of those things we have found as being a key ingredient to helping begin that journey of thriving.
That's really incredible. Yeah, amazing. I can imagine people are thinking, all right, well, how do you balance that? Because you've got profitability, you've got social responsibility. Like, how do you see the balance there as a leader?
And from my perspective, really what you're trying to find as you optimize the triple bottom line is where is optimal for all three. And it shouldn't really be a trade-off. You know, we're not often finding ourselves doing things that are really great for people but horrible for the bottom line, or really great for the bottom line and horrible for people. You know, you're trying to find these balances where, you know, there's actually collective thriving amongst the three: people, planet, profit. So an example of that is, you know, if you look at some of the work that we're doing in the circular economy space, we are actually trying to take waste out of the system, and we're trying to look at that as a feed stream for new products. And so rather than the typical take, make, waste, you know, how can we use those waste products to become new products, to kind of close the loop and make this circular economy space? It's actually good for the bottom line because you're taking something that is relatively inexpensive and making it something that is worthwhile. And it's also good for the environment, and it's inspirational or inspiring for people. And so I think from my perspective, it's really looking at the ways in which, rather than trade-offs, that they can be mutually reinforcing from that perspective.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, wow. You think back, you know, you've got examples of all these products that you've built and projects that you've done. Is there any one particular or maybe two particular projects that you've done that are really rewarding for you as a leader?
So from my perspective, I am really proud of the work that we have done over many, many years that started with our Welfare to Career program and progressed to our Returning Citizens program, and now through Talent First and through full community engagement, we have actually impacted the recidivism rate in West Michigan. So when you look at the statistics, we have improved year over year, and we're now dramatically better in the last 20 years than we were in terms of the number of people returning to prison. And there's multiple reasons for that. I know that Cascade has been just a piece of a much larger puzzle from that perspective, but the fact that we were willing to open our doors to folks that had felonies on their record, and then we worked together with other groups to move the box from an initial screen where you say I had a felony, and then that person gets lumped out, to the end of the process after they've gone through the whole interview process, that you've seen that person as an individual, and then you do a background check. We're also doing a screening actually next week of a movie called Behind the Walls about the Calvin Theological Seminary and the vocational village work that they are doing on teaching people in prison different technical skill sets so that they come out and are employable. But the number one reason why people go back to prison is because they don't have a job. And if we can solve that as a region and we can get more people having gainful employment, it's an incredible opportunity. And I've really been excited about the statistics and the data that has shown that we've actually made an impact in our community. So that would be one that I'm incredibly proud of. And then the other one, which just happened, was we won the Society for Plastics Engineers top award for our new Ford Ford F-150 front trunk. So it is the largest front trunk in the industry. It's a very large component part and fully automated line that does all the assembly work along that line. And it's just been a very rewarding project, and it was great to be recognized among our peers that we still have it from an innovation perspective, and we're still doing the latest and greatest in terms of product design.
Wow. That's amazing as well. We've got a lot of good news coming out today. I'm curious because leaders are trying to foster a culture of innovation and inclusion, and you've probably got some examples and ways that are helpful for leaders that are watching this. What would you say are ways that you've been able to foster your culture in those areas?
So we kind of start from a fundamental position that diverse opinions, diverse views really drives innovation, and that you're going to get a better innovation because you have different voices around the table. I think that seems self-evident, but some people are not necessarily starting from that premise. And when you start from that premise, then you say, okay, and what are the barriers that are stopping people from participating in those conversations? Whether it is, the work schedule, maybe they feel that their voice is not being heard. One of our fundamental values is that everybody should know that they are valued in our organization. And we use know they are valued because feel and think and other things, there's different attributes to each of those. But we say, as a leader, it's our responsibility that everybody in our organization knows that they're valued. And part of that feeling valued is what brings some of those opportunities for people to bring their ideas forward. Because ultimately, innovation does not come from an individual or from a specific level within the organization. Innovation comes from sitting with the problem long enough that a solution starts to emerge, and that solution, as it emerges, might look differently from different people who are working throughout the organization. And so how do we collectively build that momentum to codify that solution and then bring that to the market?
Wow. Yeah, I'm learning so much as you're talking through this. So got a lot of ideas as you're thinking about this. But how has your approach to leadership really evolved? So you took on the role of CEO and chair. Was this always, this incredible leader that you were, or did you have, kind of an evolution of learning how to be a better leader?
From my perspective, I've watched my father over the years, and he's got a different leadership style, I think, than others. He's not a command and control type of person. He's really more of a consensus builder who tries to solicit people's best out of them. And it's been interesting because as I've gone through business school, I've kind of gone in that direction, and depending on who I'm around, some people think of that as a weak leadership style, or it's well, you need to be more firm and directive and tell people what to do, and so it's interesting because I feel like other people may look at that as good leadership or not good leadership, depending on which groups you're in. But I think that the idea that I think that as a leader, you're really trying to cultivate the best out of your team, and it's really less about the leader themselves, but about the outcomes, and is our organization healthy? Is our organization thriving? And does everyone know that they're valued? And those are my responsibilities as a leader. And so that's kind of, I guess, how I've always thought about leadership from that perspective. But it's not necessarily how everybody else thinks about leadership. And so I think for me, it's been more of a journey of feeling more and more secure about the way that I'm leading, because it's not necessarily the norm in some of the areas. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. As you think about, so that's on the leadership side, I'm thinking now about sustainability again. Mm-hmm. How have you maybe put in place strategies to help make sure that doesn't fizzle, or it was a good idea back then, but sustainability is really something that's driving you forward?
Absolutely. So the triple bottom line has been codified not only in our vision and our values, but also we do strategic planning in a couple of different ways. And one is our level 0 objectives, which are what we want to try to accomplish in the next 5 years. And so our level 0 objectives very clearly have categories of people, planet, and profit. And we talked about that over time of, well, each of them should be reinforcing, that should be individual, but by having the intentionality of people, planet, profit, for example, a goal of carbon emission reductions comes up that maybe wouldn't have if we would have just allowed them to be, whatever these few initiatives are. So we have 2 or 3 under each of people, planet, and profit of where we really want to go in the next 5 years. And then we have these level 1 initiatives, which are our 1-year SMART goals. So for example, we had a couple of specific goals around how we can get to those carbon emission reductions based on changing our fleet of high-lows to more electric high-lows. We have our rolled cart trash container. We can fit a lot more per truck, so we're able to push that design and other things so that we can have less logistics as we roll out our carts. And so realistically, we have these high level level 0 objectives, our 1-year goals, and then even all the way down to our bonus program for everybody has people, planet, and profit. It's called the COQCI, which is the cost of quality continuous improvement, but it has key initiatives that if everybody participates in the whole organization in reaching those objectives, they can get up to 15% per quarter bonus for those initiatives. So it's part of our strategy, and it's part of our incentive process as well.
Wow, that's really impressive. As you think about, describing how you would give advice to maybe, someone that's younger in their career, or they're trying to start out on all of this that you're talking about, what advice would you give to younger leaders or people that are just entering kind of this mindset that you're talking about?
I think that it's really important as you're entering the workforce to just be intentional about each of your decisions of where you're going to spend your time. Everybody has scarce resources of time, and so looking at, what am I going to do when I get home from work? What am I going to do as I engage with the community? I try to be only involved in 2 different boards outside of the organization, so I can put a lot of focus on the organization, my family, and then 1 or 2 opportunities. Right now, I'm very energized by the Econ Club of Grand Rapids, and so that's one of my outside passions that I give energy to. And I think by being intentional about the things that you choose to engage in, you can really bring your whole self to the things that you're engaging in and not spread yourself too thin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so not having that, kind of inch deep and a mile wide. Yeah, that's really good. So as you look towards the future, and I don't know if this needs to be further than 5 years, but what aspirations do you have for Cascade Engineering?
From my perspective, I think that we have a huge opportunity to be a model of collective thriving. So from my perspective, the idea that so much of our current structure is based on competition and as a society, and someone's winning, someone's losing, and that there's jealousy or resentment or ego that really drives someone to try to be better than another. This idea that we can create an environment where not only as an organization everybody is thriving, but as a community everybody is thriving, and that's actually reinforcing, because as a community, when all the businesses are thriving and not necessarily in perceiving it as competition with each other, we can actually make a huge positive impact for our area. And so that's something that I'm passionate about. And then the other one is circular economy. So when I look at the environmental side of things, I look at it as an equation. So there's a numerator side and a denominator side. And the denominator side, basically, you can expand the denominator forever and it will just get to 0. And a lot of environmental initiatives, I feel like, are stuck in the denominator side. It's how do you get to 0 waste to landfill? How do you get to 0 emissions? How do you get to not making a negative impact on the environment? And I think that where I'd like to see more organizations go, and where we hope to be a leader in, is flipping that to the numerator side and saying, what innovations can we do that are going to be breakthrough, that are going to, as they expand, actually expand the whole industry. So some of the exciting things that we've got actually here, we've got some props. So this is a product that we have. There's resin here that is made out of recycled trash containers. So if you look at how many recycle and trash containers there are nationwide, there's millions of those. We bring them back at their end of life or when they're getting recarded. We break those down, and they're HDPE, a great grade of plastic. We're able to put other fillers into those as necessary, but we're able to bring those back in as a feed stream. So rather than taking new plastic from the oil and gas industry, we're really trying to make plastics a truly circular approach. And so that's one of our product lines. The other one is our we have bio-based plastics. So you can also put bio-based plastics with PLA and they can become fully compostable. And so there's opportunities for looking at how do you take a waste stream. So for example, we're working with a group out of California that has nutshell waste. We're working with a hemp plastic group. We're even working with other folks that have more of a bio-based resin, but it's typically a bio that's a waste product. And how do we incorporate that into the plastic so that we're able to utilize that? And so it's really looking at the whole system differently with waste as food. So how can waste become the feedstock for our industry, and how can we really close that loop so that products are continuously being utilized in the stream. So those would be my two aspirations, would be more of the collective thriving and the circular economy.
Wow. Well, I love how you brought props too. It's always good to have some props. As you think about, and this will be the last question, but as you think about your personal interests or personal projects, is there anything that you'd like to share with our audience? And you've been so helpful to us, so I really appreciate this.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think from my perspective, I'll speak a little bit about the Economic Club of Grand Rapids. I think that there's an opportunity really to continue to think globally about what are the trends that are happening outside of West Michigan. Sometimes here in West Michigan, we are a little bit in a bubble, and you think about the things that are happening here. And so breaking through that and having globally relevant thought leaders that are coming to our community and saying, okay, what's happening on the world stage? What's happening from an economic perspective? What are some of the systems? What are some of the structures? And then having that place where people can not only listen to and be inspired by those thought leaders, but also that they can ultimately connect with others, reflect over that. I've been really getting excited about reading a lot of the authors who have come in, Malcolm Gladwell, Peter Zion, other ones, and absorbing those and then reflecting with other people so that we can create this network of kind of activated leaders in our community. And I respect what you have done with this series and with our community of just trying to elevate the thought leadership in our region and stay tied in and connected, always learning. I love the idea of continuously learning, continuously engaging, and as a community, how can we continue to elevate the conversation?
Yeah, that's amazing. If people want to find out more, where can they follow you? Is LinkedIn a good place for that?
I'm on LinkedIn and at cascadeengineering.com or cascadeng.com. So
awesome. Well, we've been talking with Christina Keller, the CEO and Chair of Cascade Engineering. Christina, thank you so much.
Thank you.